Hey everybody, Mr. Odom here, and I'm going to cover section 10.1, Outcomes and Events. You're going to need your pencil, composition book, or notebook paper, and a calculator. And the learning target for this video is I can identify and count outcomes of experiments. So sounds like a lot of new words that we're covering in this chapter, and it is. So this chapter is about probability. And so we need some definitions. A lot of words right here, and there are several definitions. And I'll highlight them for you, and then we'll pause the video so you can write them down. So let's start with an experiment. What is an experiment? You guys have science class. What do you do in experiments? You investigate things. So an experiment is an investigation or procedure that has varying results. Okay, I could do an experiment one day and the results are one way, and I can do the same experiment another day and get different results. Okay, the possible results from an experiment, the possible results are called outcomes. So the possible outcomes, I'm going to write this down, the possible outcomes, I'm setting us up for the next section on probability. I call that the PO, P-O. And you'll see why when we start to calculate probability. A collection of one or more outcomes is an event. Okay, so a collection of one or more outcomes is called an event. And then the outcomes of a specific event. The outcomes of a specific event are called favorable outcomes. And for favorable outcomes, and you'll see this in the next section, this is what we call the FO. So we got the FO and the PO, okay? Now here's an example. So randomly selecting, and when we do experiments, when it's performed at random, okay, so when we randomly choose things, all of the possible outcomes are equally likely to happen. Okay, and let's look at this example here. So in this example, we're randomly selecting a marble from a group of marbles. So maybe they're in a bag and you can't see, you reach into the bag and you pull one out. You can't see what color the marbles are, okay? And this is your experiment. So each marble in the group is an outcome. If you're going to reach in and pick one marble, okay, that's one outcome of that experiment, okay? Selecting a green marble from the group is called an event, okay? So that means that there's one or more outcomes. So if I were to choose a purple marble, that would be an event. If I were to choose a yellow marble, that would be an event. Okay, so choosing a green marble from the bag, how many favorable outcomes are there? Well, we have to count how many green marbles there are in the bag. There are two of them. Okay, so you could choose either one of those, and those are our favorable outcomes of choosing a green marble. If we wanted to choose a purple marble, okay, there's only one outcome. There it is, choosing that one purple marble. Okay, so this is important stuff. So I'm going to stop the video here, and I want you to write down the definitions of experiment, outcomes, event, and favorable outcomes in your composition book. So the video is going to stop now. All right, so we're back. Let's look at a couple examples. Let's see this stuff in action. So the first problem, you randomly, and that's important, you randomly choose a letter from a hat that contains the letters A through K. So I wrote the letters down. So what are the possible outcomes? When the question says, what are the possible outcomes? you have to list them. You have to write them all down. So that's what I did for part A. I answered it already. I wrote down all the possible outcomes. So this set right here represents the PO, all of the possible outcomes. So the second question says, what are the favorable outcomes of choosing a vowel? So what do I have to do? I have to go through my alphabet and find all the vowels. So that means I need to know what all the vowels are. A, E, I, O, and U. So A, that's in there. E is in there. I is in there. O and U are not in there. So my favorable outcomes, the faux, the favorable outcomes for choosing a vowel are A, E, and I. So notice it said what. So that means I have to write them down. It didn't say how many. It just said what are they. Okay. So when you see the word what, that should clue you in that you're going to be writing down outcomes. You're not counting them. All right. Let's look at another example where we will be counting. So all these marbles are in a bag, and you're going to choose one. Now, here's the key word right here. How many possible outcomes are there? So when you see, when the question asks for how many, when you see that, then you count. Okay, then I can count. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the answer to this question is there are 8 possible outcomes. In part B, in how many ways? So this is also counting. In how many ways can choosing a blue occur? So all I need to do is count the number of blue marbles. I see that there are 2 of them. So the answer to this is 2. All right. Now we have this question. In how many ways, so we're counting again, can we choose, or can choosing not yellow? So that word not is important. So that means we're going to choose the other marbles, the ones that are not yellow. Okay, so how many of the marbles are not yellow? And we can count them. There's 1 green, 2 blue, so that's 3, 1 red, so that's 4, and a purple. So that gives us the answer to this one would be 5. All right, and then for the second part of this, it says what. So that means I'm going to be listing the favorable outcomes of choosing not yellow. Okay, so I'm going to list them. So that means I have a blue marble. You could just write the color down. I have another blue marble because these 2 blue marbles are separate. I have a green marble. I have a red marble, and I have a purple marble. Okay, so the key ideas in this section are make sure that you read the question carefully. All right, if it asks for how many, we're looking for a number. If it says what, then I need you to list the favorable outcomes or list the possible outcomes. Okay, so that is it for section 10.1. Hopefully that was helpful. And this is Mr. Odom, and I'm out.